Typically, when you're talking about a reoccurring thing in fighting games, there's a bit of a story to tell. Like, if we were talking about DPs, I'd look at some of their earliest incarnations, I'd touch on what they're like today, and along the way we'd look at how some characters in specific games put their own unique spin on it. However, that doesn't really work here. Orbs aren't really a consistent concept in fighting games the way something like a Hadouken or a Tatsu is. I mean, who's to say what an orb really is? Does it have to be a big old ball of energy, or does anything spherical count? Fuck, does it even have to be spherical, and if not, how unspherical are we willing to get here? In terms of functionality, orbs can be literally fucking anything. Like, attacks just sometimes are orbs, that's really how it is. Sometimes they're used for zoning, sometimes they're used for mix-up, sometimes they're combo extenders, sometimes they're combo enders, sometimes they're friendship enders, sometimes you just decide to become the orb, and sometimes the opponent becomes the orb, because why the fuck not? I guess what I'm getting at here is that there's basically no consistency in terms of what we're going to be talking about today. One day I just sat down and was like, damn, a lot of attacks I like in fighting games just kind of happen to be orbs. That's kind of funny. I should do an entire video on that. Yeah. So I guess it does make sense that we start with a fairly old orb in a fighting game, and personally one of the more interesting examples in my opinion is Reptile's Force Ball from classic Mortal Kombat. Now, the earliest incarnation of this move from Mortal Kombat 2 isn't the most interesting thing in the world. It's not a terrible move, it does launch on hit, it's a fairly important part of Reptile's game plan, but it's slow, quite predictable when you can jump it on reaction and potentially punish him. It's just, there's not a lot to it. Reptile in general isn't great in Mortal Kombat 2, he's generally considered the worst character in the game, which, considering how hyped up he was in Mortal Kombat 1, is kind of fucking embarrassing. Where things get really cool in my opinion is Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Reptile is a very strong character in this game, and Force Ball is a pretty significant part of that. On top of receiving significant improvements to its frame data, there are now two versions of Force Ball, a slow one and a fast one. And unlike what you might typically be used to from fighting games, both of them can be on screen at the same time, which is pretty fucking goofy. These are extremely good projectiles that give a ton of reward on hit because they launch the opponent, and this makes Reptile one of the few characters in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 with a legitimate zoning game. It is definitely a little bit matchup dependent. His zoning is shaky against characters like Jade or Nightwolf who can ignore or reflect your projectiles, and characters with teleports can give him a little bit of trouble, like Ermac, Human Smoke, or Shitty Human Smoke. However, even in matchups where your zoning isn't as strong, one area where Force Ball is always useful is in your combo game. Reptile's 2-2 down +1 string launches on hit, and you can juggle into Force Ball after landing it. After this, you can walk in, do 2-2, cancel into run to run under the opponent, and you can continue the juggle on the other side. Now, you can very easily get 40% against the entire cast here, but with good enough execution and the right opponent, you can break 50 or even 60%. Now, getting big damage out of these combos is actually quite difficult. Reptile is one of the most executionally demanding characters in UMK3. The best I can do is like 55% against characters like Jax, who are generally very easy to juggle. However, if you're really sick nasty with it, you can not only get massive damage off a Force Ball juggle, but you can even perform an infinite combo against specific characters. To perform the infinite, instead of cancelling 2 high punches into a run after a Force Ball juggle, you perform 2 high punches, cancel with block, walk forward, perform a 3rd high punch, and cancel that into a run. Once you're on the other side, you can do 1-2 or 2-2 depending on whatever's more comfortable for you, cancel that with block, walk forward, do another high punch, and repeat the process until death. Or until you drop it. This is really hard, I can't do this, sorry. I haven't played a ton of UMK3, but I will occasionally just boot it up and practice Reptile combos for no other reason than I think it's fun. However, one last thing I would like to note about Force Ball in UMK3 is that if you do a jump in into Reptile's 2-2 down +1 string, you might notice that you can't actually do a Force Ball, and you're forced to end the combo early. Reptile's Force Ball just gets turned off after the 4th hit of a combo, which is just fucking hilarious. This is just how classic Mortal Kombat is. Like, games these days would have, like, built-in infinite prevention systems, or they would, like, increase the gravity on an opponent that's being juggled over time. No, classic Mortal Kombat is just, like, Hey, you know the move that does the combos? No, you can't have that. Hey, yeah, the damage here is getting a little bit high. How about you just, like, stop doing that? Go play some neutral. It's brilliant. I kind of love it. Also, while the move didn't return in Mortal Kombat 11, Force Ball is very much intact in Mortal Kombat 9 and Mortal Kombat X, where it's especially funny because you can do this. Yo, bro, check this out real quick. Now, classic Mortal Kombat is cool and all, but I'm sure a lot of you know that Guilty Gear is more my speed. And starting with plus R, there are plenty of fucked up orbs in here. Venom's Dark Angel is one of the best supers in the game, doing a shit ton of chip damage or draining the fuck out of your tension gauge if you FD it. Jam's Puffball frames you for murdering a family of 4 on counter hit. But the one that I want to put a little bit of focus on is Milia's Secret Garden. Secret Garden is a programmable projectile that moves forward once and then in 4 more directions based on inputs you made during the move's startup. It's a potentially really cool move, and while setting it up is quite difficult due to the high recovery outside of specific knockdowns like air throw or counter hit JD, if you can get it up, there's a lot of really funny stuff you can do. And if you feel like you've fucked up by trying to set it up, you can press Dust, which cancels the animation. There's also a Force Break version of the move, which is a lot easier to set up because it has less recovery, leaves you in a better position, and it's easier to input 4 directions for the orb to travel in, because you can input heavy slash inputs and dust inputs to make your orb move. Very cool move with a lot of potential. But you know what? Let's dial it back for a minute. All these orbs are like designed to smack the shit out of your opponent or put them in fucked up scenarios that are hard to get out of. Like, this is all so violent. I don't want to hit people with my orbs. What if I just want to, like, collect orbs? That sounds fun, right? Oh fuck. Now, the thing most people know Zappa for are his 3 different summons that he can pull throughout the course of a game, but on top of that, he also has a completely unique mechanic in that hitting the opponent with certain special moves grants him orbs. Performing a manual summon while you have 8 orbs unlocks a temporary 4th summon, the Lightning God Rao. Even if you have 8 orbs, the 3 in 8 chance that Zappa just gets a free summon when he's hit will never give you Rao. Only triplets, dog, or sword. Here's a quick run through of every single move Zappa has that grants him orbs. No matter which summon you have, 214D is a plus on block 16 frame overhead that gives 2 orbs on hit and will remove your current summon. Zappa's reversal super also removes your current summon and gives 1 orb for every time it hits, up to a maximum of 4 orbs. If Zappa has no summon, his 236p manual summon gives 1 orb on hit. With sword, 236S gives 1 orb on hit, and the heavy slash follow-up gives 3, 623H gives 2 orbs on hit, and 63214H gives another 2 orbs on hit. With triplets, all of your ghost projectiles give 1 orb on hit, so 236D can give up to 3 if all 3 ghosts connect. Lastly, with dog, 8D gives 1 orb on hit, and uniquely, 2D gives 3 on hit, and 1 on block, being the only move that does so.
Stop chewing so fucking loud, bro.
Leave that little guy alone. The fuck is you gonna do if I don't?
Once you summon Rao, he's only active for 15 seconds and then you're left summonless, but you get a lot of cool shit to play with in that 15 seconds. Zappa's damage is generally on the lower side. He's not a character that typically breaks 200 damage, and if he does, he generally needs to spend quite a bit of meter to do it. Rao, on the other hand, can easily break 300 damage meterlessly, and on top of that, his combos typically have insane corner carry. He also gets one of the best DPs in the game, which hits on frame 4, is air unblockable, has a ludicrously big hitbox, and for 50 tension mid-screen, can convert into ludicrous damage by going into Darkness Anthem loops, which allow you to even break 400 damage. Darkness Anthem is actually a pretty fucked up orb in its own right. It's plus 7 on block with huge chip damage, and it's got 4 different follow-ups that launch a projectile at different angles and speeds. The projectiles are air unblockable and lead to a full combo on hit because of fucking course they do. Now, the huge damage and massive normals that Rao offers you are very cool, but Rao isn't necessarily a win condition for Zappa. It's actually a little bit flawed, really. The main issues with Rao are 1, the limited time you actually get to use it, and 2, the weaker mix compared to other summons. Every other Zappa summon has access to at least 1 fast grounded overhead, and a lot of them are really, really fucked up. Rao, on the other hand, only has 5D, And while the reward on hit is huge and it is plus on block, it's frame 24, which isn't exactly amazing. Compared to Zappa's other summons, Rao can actually struggle to open up the opponent a bit, which is an issue when you only have access to it for 15 seconds, and while the reward when you do open the opponent up is huge, that can be a little bit redundant, because if you've managed to actually get Rao, the opponent is probably pretty close to death anyways. I've seen some people claim that Rao is actually Zappa's worst summon, which is kind of bizarre to think about, but while I don't want to say it's a definitive Zappa fact or anything like that, I get it at least. I see where they're coming from. However, while Rao might struggle to open up the opponent a bit, there is a chance that you won't actually have to open up the opponent, and that's thanks to one other move that Rao gets that I haven't mentioned. Rao gives Zappa access to a second super, which launches 10 massive orbs in an arc at the opponent, which do ludicrous damage on hit, and either massive chip damage on block, or drain the fuck out of the opponent's tension if they try to FD it. Using this to close out a game through chip damage is a very valid option. Or you could do what I did when I played Zappa, and forget the input for the Orb super, and do your reversal super in neutral that gets rid of your summon. So the XX series definitely gave us some pretty fucking iconic orbs, there's no way around that, and a lot of them made the transition over to Exod quite well, but Exod also kind of gave us the orb character, and I'd be doing a massive disservice to her if I didn't mention her. We need to talk about... okay, I guess I'll go fuck myself. But yeah, Heihyun, here she is. A lot of Heihyun's game plan heavily revolves around her orbs. 236S and 236H summon a steerable projectile that you can move left and right by pushing left and right on your controller. Down right and down left will also move the orb at the same speed as right and left. 236S summons a blue orb that has significantly less startup and recovery, but only hits once. 236H summons a red orb that has over 3 times the startup and more recovery, but hits 3 times instead of 1. The blue orb is more of a neutral tool. It's excellent for controlling space, and blue orb YRC is incredible for just fucking getting in. It does have some utility in setups though. You can drop it on top of your opponent on certain knockdowns where you don't quite have enough time to set up a red orb. The red orb is primarily an Oki tool that you use on the opponent's knockdown. The ideal setup is to hit the opponent once with the orb as they wake up, to go for an overhead low mix, and then steer the orb back into the opponent so they get hit by the remaining 2 hits of the orb. This is extremely strong because the red orb hitting twice allows you to combo into 2H, which leads into your kick loops, a near universal massive damage combo, working on the entire cast except for Potemkin. And before any Potemkin players get too happy, he just gets even more fucked up by a slightly different combo. So, you know, sorry. This scenario is extremely strong, but pulling it off in practice can be a little bit difficult due to the number of variables at play here. Different characters have different wake-up timings, there's a number of different knockdowns you can actually get when you go into Red Bull Oki, so it can be a little bit inconsistent if you're fixated on going into 2H off this. Also, Heihyun does have one more orb up her sleeve. 236-236S summons a massive orb that hits 5 times and can not only be steered left and right, but up and down. It's a great move to just fucking do, you know, like you just throw it out, run behind it, and it's like, what the fuck is the opponent gonna do about this? But more interestingly, you can actually use it in unblockable setups. Heihyun's charged reverse falcon dive is actually unblockable, but it's not a move that you would ever really land. Even the uncharged version is pretty easy to react to at frame 30. However, by doing a specific combo into and out of the orb super, you can force the opponent to block it on their wake up while you're charging a reverse falcon dive. Ideally, they'll get hit by the unblockable kick while there's still 2 hits left on the orb super, which allows you to convert into your kick loops. Which I'm not showing right now because I can't do it, but like, it's pretty cool that you can do it.
You don't want to be like this.
Now, as important as they are to Heihyun, Heihyun is not the only character in Exod who's got a couple orbs. And the next character I'd like to talk about is a character that I have very recently become very fond of. And that's Bedman. I am a relatively new Bedman appreciator, but they've very quickly become one of my favorite fighting game characters just ever. I was really excited for Bedman in Strive. I thought they looked really sick and I was like, this is it. This is the character that's going to get me back into Strive. And while I was waiting for them to come out, I gave Exod Bedman a shot. And I was like, oh, I kinda fucking love this. Guess I'll just do this instead. And now I'm a Bedman player. Funny how that happens. Bedman has access to two pretty fucking cool orbs. Task A and Task A Prime. Both of them are boomerang style projectiles that go off screen and then return to Bedman a little bit later, but they have very different practical applications. Task A is a very, very important zoning tool for Bedman. If you use it in the air, it covers a really nasty angle, and as long as Bedman isn't put into hit or block stun, it can hit the opponent on the way back too as it returns to Bedman, which has won me more rounds than I'd like to admit. It's also great for opening up the opponent by following it in after a Task A YRC, or using Deja Vu Task A. It has drastically less recovery than just a raw Task A, and this combined with the return hit from like the boomerang effect, opens up a lot of really fun unique combo and setup opportunities for Bedman. It's something that you really gotta mess around with, but it's one of my favourite things about the character for sure. A personal favourite of mine is that if you knock the opponent down in the corner with a Task B, you can do instant air Task A YRC, and then you can force the opponent to block a high-low mix-up and combo into 2H. Then you cancel the 2H into Task B Deja Vu, which usually doesn't combo, but thanks to the returning hit on Task A, combos and allows you to get something like a 6H afterwards. It's really fun. I saw GC Yoshi do it once, and it has carried me more than the bed carries Bedman. It's fucking brilliant. I love it so much. Of course, before Rev 2, Bedman could just like combo off 2H without any of that, but you know, that's fine. I wasn't around for that. It is what it is. That's okay. That's fine. Task A Prime, on the other hand, is a bit of a different beast. It has over twice the startup of the regular Task A, and it has significantly more recovery on top of that. However, on hit or block, it teleports Bedman to the opponent, no matter what animation Bedman is in the middle of. Now, actually getting off a Task A Prime is a little bit difficult due to the high startup and recovery, but if you do, you can do a lot of really cool stuff, like combo meterlessly off a JD, which is an instant overhead on the entire cast, or combo after a 2H, which you can do, but is a little bit difficult, like I mentioned earlier. Weirdly enough, Task A Prime also gives Bedman access to his highest damage combos off of 5D in the corner, which is pretty cool, but annoyingly gives up the corner to get max damage. It's a little frustrating, but you can try and catch the opponent off guard by doing 2D into another Task A Prime, which hopefully gets you a full combo and leaves the opponent in the corner. On top of all this cool setup stuff, you can also just fucking do Task A Prime. It's easily one of the goofiest moves in the game, and is very, very knowledge checky. You can just fucking do it, and at lower levels, it's probably gonna work out for you. I'll be real. Task A and Task A Prime are really, really fun and interesting tools for Bedman, and they're a massive factor in why I've just become so enamored with this character. They really unlocked Rev 2 for me, and it's very quickly become one of my favourite games of all time. And I can't thank Bedman enough for that. Moving on to Street Fighter, there are two orbs in Third Strike that I'd like to talk about. One very notorious one, and one that's not really notorious or anything, but is just a personal favourite of mine. First up, I'd like to talk about Oro's SA2, Yaigo Dama. Now, in Street Fighter V, this move got sort of a reimagining. It was reworked into his V-Skill 1, where it has a completely different application. It's a great zoning tool, there's some tricky setups you can do with it, and it's even got some use in combos, because it gives Oro access to his highest post-stun damage. However, in Third Strike, none of that is really true. It does mostly one thing, and it does it incredibly well. Super 2 in Third Strike is used in unblockable loops. Now, Oro's unblockable loops are definitely a little bit fucked up, but I am undeniably a big fan. Typically you'll go into them off chicken combos, but you need something like a good parry or a punish to do that, because you need to cancel the first hit of stand medium punch to go into them, and that is very much not safe. Although you do have two other safe starters if you want to go into unblockable loops. Even though Oro can only hold 3 Super 2s, unblockable loops build so much meter that you can do up to like 4 or 5 if you start with max or even close to max meter. With enough meter and a bit of practice, you can unblockable loop certain characters to death, which is pretty funny to watch. Now, you might be wondering how Oro's unblockable loops actually work, and that's a very fair question, so let's talk about it. When Oro uses SA2 during an unblockable loop, SA2 is between Oro and the opponent. Hypothetically, in this scenario, the opponent would have to hold right to block SA2. However, during the unblockable loop, Oro ends up on the other side of the opponent, with SA2 directly on top of the opponent while Oro is on the right. So, what direction does the opponent have to hold to block SA2? The naive answer is left, but in actuality, they would have to hold right. For example, if the opponent summons a projectile while they're on the left and you're on the right, you would have to hold right to block it. However, if they crossed you up while the projectile was still active, that projectile still needs to be blocked by holding right, even if visually it looks like you should have to hold left. This is an issue with Oro's unblockables because as he jumps over you, he does a cross-up jump medium kick, which hypothetically you would have to hold left to block. Obviously, you can't block left and right at the same time, so you end up getting hit. This causes the orb to hit you 4 times, which gives Oro time to land, do a stand medium punch, and do another chicken combo, which lets him land another Super 2. However, you might be wondering, why is the combo going into SA2 so important? Well, to answer that, we need to talk about the juggle limit. In Third Strike, every individual hit in a juggle combo contributes to something called the juggle limit. When the juggle limit hits 6, it is no longer possible to juggle the opponent. For example, the first hit of Oro's close medium punch adds 1 to the juggle limit, and the second hit adds 3. This is why you have so much more freedom when cancelling the first hit of close medium punch, as if you let the whole thing rock, the juggle counter is already at 4. This is relevant to unblockable loops because all 3 methods of going into them that I've mentioned leave the juggle counter at 5 before SA2 connects. If the juggle counter was at 6, the opponent wouldn't connect with SA2 at all, they'd simply fall through it and land on the ground. Having the juggle counter at 5 before SA2 hits allows you to maximize your damage while still ending the combo in 1 hit of SA2. This is important because supers in Third Strike cause a hard knockdown, which gives Oro time to get in and get on the other side of the opponent. SA2 hits 5 times, so this scenario leaves SA2 with 4 remaining hits, which gives Oro time to land and land another close medium punch. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind with Oro's unblockable loops is that they are a little bit character specific. Inputting Super 2 with different punch buttons will send the orb at different trajectories, and it's important to remember which ones you use against which characters. For example, against Shoto's, you cancel into medium SA2, wait for a sec, dash twice, neutral jump, double jump forward, and then use cross-up jump medium kick. Against Chun and Makoto, you cancel into the light punch version and do 3 dashes, and against Dudley, you cancel into the heavy punch version and dash once. Also, speaking of character specific, just bear in mind that traditional unblockable loops straight up don't work against Hugo, Yun, and Yang, because chicken combos don't work on them. It's unfortunate, and there are ways you can set up unblockables on these characters, but they're definitely a little bit beyond me. If you want to learn more about them, I would definitely recommend this video. Now, I did just mention there that there are technically 3 different versions of SA2, but in reality there's 4. Oro has a unique gimmick in Third Strike where inputting any of his super arts with 2 punches will give you an EX version of that super, and this is also the case for SA2. And while it looks really cool, it's unfortunately kind of a waste of meter. You spend all 3 bars to launch this big ol' orb, and it just has nowhere near as much utility as the 1 bar versions. However, it does have one niche use, as on hit, EX SA2 resets the juggle counter, which means in the corner, it enables your highest possible damage with SA2. It's a little bit tricky and you do need full bar to do it, but it is pretty cool, does good damage, and notably works in the corner, where unblockable loops don't, so you never know, this might at some point be your best option in a match. Now, the last orb I'd like to put significant focus on today is Urian's Metallic Sphere in Third Strike. Now, I'm definitely a little bit out of my depth talking about Third Strike Urian. He is by a mile my favourite character in the game, but he's also the most technical character in the game. And I'm about as technical as a fucking Fisher-Price laptop. There are people out there who are just completely fucking nuts with this character, and I'm nowhere close to that, but at the very least, I hope I can sell you a little bit on this move, because it might seem like a simple projectile, but I really enjoy it. Now, if you're used to the Street Fighter V iteration of this move, things are a little bit different here. In Street Fighter V, light and medium Metallic Sphere both shoot a straight projectile at different speeds, and the heavy version shoots one at an upward angle. In Third Strike, the angles for all three versions of Metallic Sphere are completely different, with medium having less recovery than the light version, which shoots a straight projectile, and heavy having the least recovery out of the three by a pretty significant amount. In Street Fighter V, charging the projectile will change its properties, which has some very notable effects, like making it hit twice and enabling different juggles. But in Third Strike, charging the projectile does literally nothing. You're just delaying shooting the same projectile, and in a game with parry, that's pretty fucking bad. Metallic Sphere still has some mid-combo utility in Third Strike, but compared to Street Fighter V, it's very, very different. In Street Fighter V, a lot of it comes from cancelling the second hit of Crouching Heavy Punch, which isn't possible in Third Strike. As a result, the mid-combo utility of this move in Third Strike is generally very, very specific, and it usually involves Aegis Reflector in some capacity. However, Metallic Sphere does open up other combo opportunities for Urien, and this personally is my favourite thing about the move. In neutral, any version of Metallic Sphere is honestly a little bit risky to just throw out. I mean, listen, it's a single-hitting, relatively laggy projectile in Third Strike. I don't think I need to elaborate that much on why it's risky. However, what's cool about Metallic Sphere is the reward you get on an air hit. If you manage to hit the opponent out of the air with one, or just catch them landing on a fireball, you can follow it up with a tackle, and depending on your screen position and the character you're fighting, you can potentially get a whole lot more than just one tackle. It's really, really sick. On top of just using the move raw to catch people jumping, you can also cancel into it in an attempt to mix up your anti-air game. This game does have air parries after all, so you do what you can. I think my favourite aspect of Metallic Sphere though is its use in some of Urien's corner combos. Urien's corner combos, specifically after a launcher, are quite character specific, and I know that's not for everyone, but personally character specific combos are something I really enjoy. For me, there's just a real sense of satisfaction out of knowing what works against who, and then finally getting to put it into practice when you play that specific matchup. That's something I really value in a character personally. I do understand why it's not for everyone though. Now, not all of your corner combos involve Metallic Sphere. Against some characters, you're very limited. You're typically just doing tackle into chop, and against a lot of characters like Shotos, you're generally doing tackle headbutt, which is very powerful, but obviously doesn't involve Metallic Sphere. Now, I do think it's worth mentioning that a lot of these are technically not your max damage options. Like, for example, against Shotos, you can technically do tackle headbutt, but that's just genuinely a bit beyond me. I can't do it for the life of me. These are more so just some of your most reliable options rather than your outright best options. They strike a good balance between good damage and not being unreasonably difficult to execute. Urien's got an absurdly high skill ceiling in Third Strike. Aim for whatever's comfortable for you. Against Chun, after a launcher, you do light kick tackle, light punch sphere, light kick tackle, chop. Very simple. It's really easy. It's the same deal against Makoto, except slightly harder, and it's technically one of your best options against Alex and Dudley, but it's just really fucking hard. These guys juggle really fucking weirdly. I hate it. I don't know what's up with them. 12 is unique in that you do the same combo against them, but you swap the first light kick tackle for a medium kick tackle. It does more damage and it makes the combo genuinely easier, which is kinda bizarre. It's quite difficult, but you can do medium kick tackle into medium punch sphere against 12, which is great because medium punch sphere has less recovery, so you can go into medium kick tackle into chop, or if you're good enough, another medium kick tackle. Against Necro, you start with light kick tackle, and then getting a medium sphere is quite easy, so you can follow up with heavy kick tackle, and poor unfortunate Soul Q gets hit by a heavy punch sphere after a light kick tackle. They are just absolute fucking combo food. It's very unfortunate. You hate to see it. You might have noticed that so far there's one version of Sphere that I haven't mentioned at all, and that's unfortunately for very good reason. EX Sphere is complete trash, and a contender for one of the worst EX moves in all of Third Strike. In Street Fighter V, there's quite a lot to this move. You can use different button combinations to launch the move at different speeds and angles, so there's essentially 3 different versions of this move, and that's not counting if you charge it or combine it with V-Skill 2. In Third Strike, there is one EX Sphere, and it's fucking dreadful. The one genuinely good thing about this move is the fact that it hits twice. That's it. EX Sphere has 2 massive problems in Third Strike. The first is that it has a whopping 55 frames of recovery, which just completely destroys the move. The projectile is actually quite slow, and if the move had less recovery, you could hypothetically move in behind it to, put some pressure on the opponent, but the massive recovery just completely destroys that. There's no potential for any of that. The recovery also makes the move extremely unsafe. In Street Fighter V, you can cancel into this move and be plus on block. Here, if you use it point blank, you're minus 16 on block and minus 15 on hit. The huge recovery also makes it nearly impossible to juggle out of, not that you'd really want to in the first place. The other big issue with this move is very simple. It costs meter on a character with one of the best EX moves in the game, and fucking Aegis Reflector. Urien lives and dies by his meter, and if you're spending it on EX Metallic Sphere, the dying part is definitely going to take priority. Also, I just remembered, there's a third terrible thing about EX Metallic Sphere in Third Strike. It doesn't have the cool double orb effect that it did in Second Impact. Told you this shit was bad. EX Metallic Sphere is so awful that honestly, I'm not even convinced people would use it if it hypothetically didn't cost meter. If anyone out there knows of like a legitimate practical use for this move, where it's not just completely outclassed by something else, please tell me. I would fucking love to know. Now, that does it for all the orbs that I wanted to talk about in like any significant detail. These are ones that I'm pretty familiar with myself. But there's one more orb in a fighting game that I wanted to at the very least sort of address. I want to take a very quick look at Melty Blood Actress Again Current Code, where we need to take a look at C. Roa. Oh shit, sorry, where are my manners? Honest Mids Michael. As Roa, 214 A, B or C will set an orb, and doing the motion again causes lightning to strike. On the ground, the lightning strikes vertically, and different buttons will set the orb different distances away from Roa. In the air, all three versions deploy an orb at Roa's location, and the lightning strikes horizontally. On their own, orbs seem like a fairly reasonable set play tool, and at one point they were. But where things get kind of fucked up is the charged version introduced in current code. By holding down the button when you deploy an orb, you set a charged orb, and this buffs the lightning strike that appears when you do the motion again. Now, I'll level with you real quick. I'm not going to go super in-depth on Roa's orbs. I'm just not a Melty player, and if I try and convey just how fucked up these are, I'm probably just going to fuck it up at some point. Melty's really cool, it's just not something I ever had the time to get into. There's a lot of, like, obviously fucked up things about charged orbs. Like, yes, the lightning strike is plus 26 on block. Yes, the air-charged orbs hit crouching and are air unblockable. Yeah, they launch properly on OTG hit, so comboing off them is really fucking easy. Yes, they autocorrect, so getting past the orbs doesn't save you from set play, and in fact can potentially make it worse, because now the lightning strike pushes you towards Roa. And yeah, you can cancel orbs into orbs, which allows you to set fucking 3 of them off a 2C hard knockdown. This is cool and all, but if you want to learn how truly fucked up these are, I would highly recommend that you go watch War Crimes: A History of C. Roa. It gives you a better understanding of how orbs are fucked up, how Roa's kit in general is quite fucked up, and it also touches on the history of C. Roa, which is one of the coolest things about the character. I'm sorry if this feels like a bit of a cop-out ending. You know, you just finished this video and now I'm telling you to go watch another one. That you should, good-ass video, but regardless, I was kind of conflicted on what to do here. Like, yes, I'm not a Melty player, I don't know much about Melty, but at the same time, C. Roa's orbs are like the fucked up fighting game orbs, and I couldn't not, like, at least mention them. Regardless, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you haven't already seen it, I hope you enjoyed that video too, because you really should give it a watch. Roa is fucked up, bro, it's actually kind of crazy.